All right, this is it. We're done. 2 more chapters. They're both very short. Climax of this damn book. And we're finally finished and we can move on to another terrible book. Which, no, it'll probably be terrible. But anyway, chapter 26. Surely if Dante could have seen the rock-lined pit under Club Undead, he'd have thought it an accurate depiction of at least one of his many hells. Lit by torches and burning bits of floor, the Tor Aldegan's current residence stank of flammable gases, blood, vomit, and outright evil. It also rang with the voices of her worshippers, who'd agreed it would be a bright idea to summon her fully into our realm. A big, bad carnivore who saw the entire world as her little Red Riding Hood. Wouldn't it just be the big bad wolf then? That would make a lot more sense. The Degonites, who probably passed as upstanding citizens by day, bankers and insurance agents, and definitely lawyers, screamed like a bunch of U2 fans as their goddess began to change. God, this book is dating itself so well. The rest of us just watched, stunned, speechless, as a yellowish red substance, the consistency of hair gel, oozed out of the Tor's wound. I let go of the sword hilt and backed up, fear and confusion warring with panic and horror, to see which would gain control of my mind first. In defiance of gravity, the ooze rose, growing over the top of the Tor's head. It spread downward as well until it looked as if she had stepped into inside an enormous tank of pink Vaseline. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I looked back at my friends. Cole still had the crowd corralled, but they seemed cheerful about it now. Everything else had gone from bad to worse. Somehow, Aiden had escaped Vale long enough to deaf Bergman, who lay crumpled on one of the floor's few dry spots like a worn-out bloodhound. Aiden had then grabbed Cassandra, who still looked spaced out, and now held her in front of him like a shield. The Inkinklios lay at their feet, replaying another fight scene featuring some long-dead hero in the Tor. This one had not a sword, but a two-handed battle axe. Time after time, the Tor suffered blows that would have felled a crazed elephant, and yet she kept coming back for more, kept healing. "Give me the key!" Aiden screamed. "Give it to me now, before I break this ears of yours over my knee." Let me reread the sentence. "Give it to me now before I break this seer of yours over my knee." Okay. "I do not have it," said Vale. "One of us must have kicked it into a pool while we were fighting." He said it casually, a weatherman mentioning the cold front that was about to whip through the region, but his eyes kept darting to the Tor, as did Aiden's. In the short time I'd looked away from her, she changed dramatically. She'd grown to twice her height inside that viscous shell. Her hair had clumped and then formed into tentacles. Spinal plates grew out of her back. And where there should have been an extra protrusion in the shape of a sword hilt, there was, instead, a jiggling tumorous mass that reminded me alarmingly of a giant egg sac. Only I had a gut-wrenching feeling its contents heralded not birth but death. No doubt about it, she had fully ingested the plague, but she still hadn't completely entered the world. I kept reminding myself of that as the transformations continued, happening so fast I could hear the squeal of bones stretching and the wet, ripping sound of skin opening to make way for new appendages, including two vicious-looking pincers that emerged from the Tor's bleeding jaws. In the hands of any other author, they could have made that scene terrifying. That's not terrifying. She stretched, rising to a height of at least 8 feet. Her new muscles rippled beneath skin the color of a bad sunburn. Her eyes had brightened to violet, the same color, in fact, as Liliana's. I had never seen anything so immense, so unearthly, so unbeatable. Tammy Shobuson's voice squealed in my head. "Loser, loser, loser." "Time to play," the Tor growled as she shook the gel from her new body. If only Jenny Craig had her recipe. She moved toward me. Even though I knew deep down this was the end of me, I stood my ground. There was no other option. "Move," she demanded. "No." "What do you hope to gain by standing in my way?" I thought about it. Even now, in the final moments of my life, smart-ass me was ready and available for service. "I'd like a title, maybe Idiot of the Year. Is that one taken?" She leaned over me, the putrid tang of her breath making my curls wilt. "Are you trying to save the lives of your puny friends?" "What if I was? Then you would, without question or debate, qualify as a willing sacrifice." Shit. I turned and ran, mowing through the mud like a sleek little ATV. I waved my hands and screamed, "Run, run, she's going to kill us all." As soon as I passed Vale, I heard a shot. One glance back showed Cassandra diving off to the right, while Aiden began to topple backward, a dark and gaping hole in the middle of his forehead. Vale closed in on Aiden fast, a sword-wielding juggernaut that didn't stop until Aiden's head flew from his body and the smoke of his remains staining the ceiling. The Daganites milled around, showing the whites of their eyes, as Cole swung his gun back toward them, having done all he could to pull the odds back into our favor. He looked ready to bolt, but he stood his ground, which made me enormously proud. I gestured for his gun, and he immediately tossed it to me. I sprayed the wall just above the Daganites' heads. "Run, run, run!" Like good little sheep they obeyed, surging toward the dire wreckage in a babbling mob. Even though it looked more like a tornado victim than a means of egress, people were still finding a way to climb up toward freedom. I turned the gun on the Tor and opened up. I'm not sure, but I think I might have been screaming while I shot her so full of holes she looked like a puzzle with several missing pieces. Moments later, Vale joined me, firing Bergman's weapon. He caught my eye, and I realized we were both grinning, a couple of crazy hyenas tackling one badass lion. The Tor backpedaled fast, squawking and bellowing by turns. She grabbed Bazowski from his latest fishing expedition and held him in front of her like a shield. Oh, right, he's looking for the key. His body balanced like a marionette as our bullets struck him. "Put me down, you freak," he demanded, his voice rising up the scale to a shriekish whine. "Let me go, you disgusting piece of swamp rot." She conceded, in a way, by throwing him against a wall. The sound of his spine snapping oddly resembled the crack of a split log. He fell to the ground in a heap, moaning piteously, picking at his twisted legs as if they had somehow betrayed him. And I thought we had her. I honestly did. That's how badly I wanted it to be true. Then she lunged. Even in the midst of battle, when moments move like hours, the Tor was a red blur. Fangs the size of my hand sunk into my right side. It felt like two flaming skewers had pierced me through and through, sending bolts of electric pain shooting through the rest of my body. I felt myself sinking into agony, as if it was a tar pit from which I could never escape. The Tor shook me. My feet left the ground, and, even as a red haze of torment settled over my brain, I thought distantly that I must resemble an old dog toy, frayed around the edges and in desperate need of retirement. I pressed my gun against her skull, shot until my magazine was empty, and she would not let go. Dimly, a mere echo in the booming crush of sound that was my blood rushing, my ribs breaking, my lungs collapsing. I heard Vale yelling urgent, adamant orders. I knew I must obey, if only I could decipher the language he barked them in. Then I was outside, above, watching from a place so quiet, so warm, so safe, that all it would take would be a plate of chocolate chip cookies and a tall glass of milk for me to feel as I had every time I visited Granny May. I realized I'd split from my body one last time, only all the golden threads were missing. I searched for them, feeling a wave of grief at their loss. Then I found a new thread, one imbued with every color of the rainbow, and was amazed I hadn't seen it before. It was so large, so gorgeous, pulsating to some basic rhythm that might as well have been the heartbeat of the universe. I moved toward it. Who wouldn't? But something stopped me, tugged at me, pulled me back. I looked down, perplexed, and then I saw the problem. The Tor had grabbed on to a trailing ribbon of my essence with one of the tentacles that flanked her jaw. I watched her reel me in, panic beginning to eat at the edges of the brief peace I found, but I was aware of more, as if I could see everyone and everywhere at once. The last of the Daganites had reached the door and was climbing through. Cassandra had crawled to Bergman and was rolling him over. He winced and grabbed aside, saying something to her that caused her to turn him further and grab at something he'd been laying on. Colin moved to Vale's side, and they both fought to force the Tor to release my body. Cole delivered a flurry of blows to the Tor's midsection, at least one connecting soundly enough to break her arm, eliciting a high-pitched scream. Vale leaped onto the Tor's back and sank his fingers into her throat. Frost crackled up her chin and across her face. He dug deeper, and the frost turned to ice. No more sounds escaped her throat, not even when he broke her jaw with one powerful blow of his fist. My body dropped to the floor, bouncing slightly before it settled into the ooze. Cole immediately went to work, inspecting wounds, searching for a pulse, but Vale stayed put, hacking away at the Tor's tentacles with bloody fists. I realized, even though he couldn't see me, that he knew. The Tor Dagan was eating my soul, slowly, with the relish of a connoisseur, and when she finished, nothing could stop her from leaping into the throat of the world. Once I thought maybe I was crazy, and the fear of losing my sanity, losing myself, had dogged every breath, dictated every action. Worse than an infestation of cockroaches, a cancerous tumor, the loss of my family. The feeling had left me unwilling to rest, unable to find peace. That had only been fear. This was real. Second by second, the Tor was ingesting the best and the worst parts of me. I was losing myself inside the horrifying red hell of the Tor's gaping maw. I struggled, I fought, I prayed, I tried desperately to tear myself free, but the slow torture of my ultimate destruction went on, and though I had no voice, I began to scream and scream and scream. A voice rang across the room, Cassandra's deep, rich tones washing across me like warm, clear water. She came forward to stand by Cole as he worked furiously over my cooling body. In her right hand she held the pyramid, the key, and in her left she held the Inkiglios, echoing the words as she heard from the small vision of a seer who had stood in a long-distance past and saved the world for a time. The Tor bellowed and shook her head, denying the power that had suddenly appeared, demanding her allegiance, but Cassandra would not relent, and a moment later I was free, flying, soaring towards that stained glass rainbow of a lifeline, and following it straight to the top. Chapter 27. Last chapter. I thought I was headed to heaven, I said as I looked out the window. The skyline of Las Vegas glared back at me. I stood in a lavish suite, definitely high roller territory, surrounded by plush furniture, satin curtains, and so much marble the room could have doubled as a mausoleum. Some would tell you you're probably already here, said my companion. I would have pegged him as a fighter from the start, even without the crew cut and the upright bearing. I recognized those eyes, had grown up around men with the same look. Only battle will do that, only pitched battle and the death of men you love like brothers. I also recognized him from our last encounter, when he'd mended my broken neck on the blood-stained floor of a house that should never have been called safe. The guy, this warrior, had smiled when I showed up, and he said, "There you are," as if we'd prearranged my appearance in the middle of his hotel room. He left his perch on a black leather bar stool and came to shake my hand. "Hello, Jasmine. My name is Raoul." Spain bronzed his skin and flavored his accent, but his manner was pure American military. "I'm dead, aren't I?" He cocked his head to one side, as if sizing up the new recruit. Every time a writer writes that they cock their head to a side, I always think of a dog. That remains to be seen. I'd gone to the window then, confused and somewhat depressed, pretty sure I'd been relegated to the eternal between. Below me, Sin City sparkled like a desert queen's tiara. Too bad the stones were fake. "I guess some people would like to spend eternity gambling and watching showgirls strut across the stage," I said. I turned from the window and dropped onto a couch that made every bone in my non-body sigh with pleasure. Shoot, I wouldn't mind spending a couple of weeks doing that myself. Raoul settled onto a matching couch that met mine at a 45-degree angle. I suddenly realized this room was arranged the same way I'd done the furniture in Diamond Suites and Bergman Safe House. Yes, in that long-ago space where Aiden had destroyed my life. "Have I been here before?" I asked. And he nodded. "And David, has he been here?" "In a way." "Oh, you're not supposed to remember." Are you okay?" "Should I be?" He smiled again. "Probably not." "So why am I here?" He looked surprised, as if I should know. "You're a hero." I was beginning to get the idea. Look, I didn't save the world back there. It was Cassandra. Despite the fact that it's a very catchy phrase, there's no such thing as an army of one. What exactly is it that you want? He gave me the "don't play dumb with me" look that you just hate to see when you're stalling. But to my surprise, he gave me an answer. "You're sitting in headquarters, soldier. It's time to re-up or retire. It's your call, of course, but we'd like you to continue your work." I jerked my head toward the window. "Funny place for headquarters. We try to stay close to the front. Then you should be in Miami. The battle there has been won. But not the war? You did not defeat the raptor. Will I be done when I do?" "If you like. But he is a canny beast. You won't catch him easily." Raoul pursed his lips and shook his head. "However, I digress. You need to make a choice." I nodded. It was time to move on, then, one way or another. I could retire. The word rest hovered out there like a green velvet dressing gown. But I'd seen what it had done to Albert and those with no reason to think I'd be any more content. Plus, my retirement would leave Evie to cope with the cantankerous old man on her own. I'd never see her baby girl. I'd never hear Dave's story, which must be remarkable as my own. Bergman and Cassandra would probably kill each other. Cole would become a bitter old man, and Bill would wander the earth alone, longing for his sons, longing for me. Oh, God. I looked at Raoul in the eye. "I'm in." "Excellent." He nodded at me, and a mystical wind rose in the room, knocking over lamps, shattering vases, forcing me to squeeze my eyes shut tight. When I opened them again, Cole's face was inches away, his breath still warm in my mouth, his fingers pressing against my neck. When he felt the blood move once again inside me, a blissful look of triumph settled over his face. She's back, he said, looking over his shoulder. Cassandra and Bregman hugged and gave me the thumbs-up sign. Vale knelt beside me, a wide smile stretching his face to new limits, making him look happy and pained at the same time. Jasmine, I'm so glad you're here. I thought about it a minute and nodded. Me too, but something troubled me. Something beyond the pain would not allow. I searched as much of the cavern as I could, considering the only body part I was willing to move was my head. There, still sprawled against the wall, Bazowski. Everyone had forgotten about him but me. He met my eyes. Even without telepathic abilities, I could read the thoughts raging inside his damaged mind. He had a good lawyer and a genius publicist. If he kept his mouth shut, he might be able to write this one out. Why not? Politicians had a rich heritage of wiggling out of tight situations. And after all, people loved him. Shoot, he might even make vampirism the new nationwide fad. The sick thing was, I could actually envision a situation or two where his fantasies came true. I looked at Vale, let my eyes stray back to Brzezowski so he understood. Finish the job. He stood up, strode over to the senator, grabbed him by the collar, and dragged him to within a foot of where I lay. He dangled from Vale's fist like an obese seventh grader who needed help finishing his first push-up. That's kind of mean. Cole, do you still have Jasmine's gun? Vale asked. Cole reached into the belt of his pants and pulled out Grief. Release the safety and push the magic button, Vale told him. While Cole readied my weapon, Vale and I spent some time in each other's eyes. Gag. More and more for us, key moments required no conversation at all. Vale would have preferred to off Brzezowski himself, because he knew this one was about to cause me pain. He also knew I needed to do this. Bottom line, the senator had betrayed his own people. It was right that one of his own should end him. Cole put Grief, now altered, to shoot as a crossbow in my hand. Vale raised Brzezowski another inch to give me a clear target. Jazz, please, Brzezowski blubbered. You don't want to do this. Actually, yes, I do. I raised the gun and fired. Brzezowski's body wafted away like the smoke from a newly doused fire. Vale brushed off his hands and took Grief from me. I closed my eyes. Better, he asked. Yeah, I sighed. Now I could rest. And that's it. It's over. We get to start a new book. I'll start it on tomorrow. I'm just so excited it's over. Just so happy.